Hi, welcome back to Two Minds Unfiltered.
And today we're doing the infamous case of Bonnie and Clyde.
Yes.
I love this case.
Me too.
It's probably the most well-known case in the world.
Oh, 100%. I mean, everyone references Bonnie and Clyde.
I would say movies, TV shows, music, books.
Everyone.
You name it, it's probably been out there.
Oh, yeah.
It literally romanticized this couple here.
Oh, yeah.
They're like the it couple that you really would never want to be, actually. Ow! You did it to yourself. I wasn't moving. You all saw it. I wasn't moving.
I hate you.
I didn't move anywhere. I didn't churn anywhere.
You didn't churn.
I had to churn for you. Make that a Valentine's Day card. Am I right? What kind of animal? Are you a donkey? Good Lord.
And you want to talk about that sound when you wheezed like a fucking hyena? What are you, from Lion King?
But I didn't go, like...
Should we get started? So, Clyde Chestnut Barrow was born in 1909 to a poor family in the town of Tellico in Ellis County, Texas. He was the fifth of 7 children of Henry Basil Barrow, who was born in 1874, and Cumie Walker, who was born in 1874 as well. So his family moved to Dallas in like the early 1920s, as part of like a migration, from the rural areas to the city, and they settled in an urban slum in West Dallas. And they spent their first months in West Dallas living under their wagon until they got enough money to buy a tent. That's really sad.
It really is,
That's
though.
really sad.
I know.
And he just started out in crime, like that was his life. He was first arrested in 1926 at the age of 17, after running when police confronted him over a rental car that he had failed to return on time. He's already starting off great. He then was arrested again with his brother Buck, and they were in possession of stolen turkeys.
But the thing is, like, it's not funny because back then, obviously, people were struggling for food, and so they would steal anything at that point.
Exactly.
So, but
it's just stolen turkeys.
Yeah.
That they just had them with them.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Oop.
I mean, I guess so. He did have some jobs in 1927 through 1929, but he also cracked safes, robbed stores, and stole cars. Basically, what you get out of GTA. So
yeah, he was a real life, just like, low baller criminal that he was just doing everything. He had, like, if there was any type of petty theft crime that you could think of, he was probably doing it then.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so I mean, obviously we can't talk about Clyde without his other half, Bonnie. So Bonnie Elizabeth Parker was born in 1910 in Rowena, Texas. She was the second of 3 children. Her father, Charles Robert Parker, was born in 1884, was a bricklayer who then died when Bonnie was around 4 years old. Her widowed mother, Emma, or Krause, Parker, who was born in 1885, moved her family back to her parents' home in Cement City, which was an industrial suburb in West Dallas, where she worked as a seamstress. Now, a little context about West Dallas. Not the best area.
Nope.
It was filled with criminals.
It's the slums.
People would be living in, like, almost trailer park type vibes.
Yeah.
And it was very, like, people would steal for means, and there was a lot of...
It's pretty much like the ghetto. Like, it was a slum area outside of, Dallas.
It was the poor area. She was a bright child who thrived on attention. So she was a pretty good kid, I will say. She didn't really ever act in the same way as the area that she was surrounded by. She's very pretty, so, she had all the male attention. She enjoyed performing on the stage and dreamt of becoming an actress because, who wouldn't? In her second year of high school, she met a boy named Roy Thornton, who was born in 1908. The couple dropped out of school and married on September 25th, 1926, 6 days before her 16th birthday.
Wild.
But the thing is, don't forget, back then, that was quite common. Women would leave school to go marry.
Mm-hmm. Become homemakers and everything like that.
Basically, though, the marriage wasn't a fairy tale. Because, young love, they're naive, and she's in love with him, But he was frequently absent, and he had brushes with the law, and the marriage proved to be quite short-lived. He went into jail. I can't remember what year he went to jail, but he went to jail, and then when he came home, he was also abusive to her, by the way.
She knows how to pick him.
She really does. But when he got home from jail, she wanted nothing to do with him, but didn't divorce him. She just didn't want to have anything to do with him, and she was then on her own. She was through. She said, "Peace out, homie." But yet she still wore his wedding ring all the way up until the day she died.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Because that was her first great love.
Right.
Yep.
Great. Great with a big asterisk.
So much was that black eye that she had, too. A little real shiner.
Mm-hmm. She was a real looker.
Just as shiny as a ring, apparently.
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, I'll stop.
She's already been put through enough.
Yeah.
She was put through the ringer.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And apparently Thornton was in prison when he heard of her death. So he really kept it going, too.
Yeah.
He even said, and I quote, "I'm glad they jumped out like they did. It's much better than being caught." So.
I guess so.
After she left Thornton, she moved back in with her mother, worked as a waitress in Dallas, and,
he was actually killed, while trying to escape from prison.
Yeah.
What a great guy.
Yeah. Well, the thing, though, that's, kind of funny is because that's exactly what Clyde used to do, and he didn't get killed doing it.
No,
so
he just wasn't that superior.
He wasn't a good criminal.
No, Clyde was
she
just...
She wouldn't want to be with a bad criminal.
No, why would she want that?
Right?
And then she could be with Clyde.
I know.
Yeah.
All right, so basically, there had to be a reason that they met because it didn't just happen one day.
It wasn't just dumb luck.
No. So basically, one of Clyde's friends was a mutual of one of hers, I believe, or in that sense. I don't know exactly how that worked out.
I don't know.
But they had mutuals. And one of her friends was not feeling good, so she went over to take care of her. Well, guess who happened to be there? Clyde. And she was like, he's such a charmer. He seemed like a dashing young man. He seemed like he had a nice head on his shoulders, and it was instant love. Like, I'm talking that love at first sight type bullshit that you hear sometimes. It was like that. And then,
she was also just, drawn to him.
Yeah.
Like, she was drawn to danger, obviously, because she was with, her previous guy. And, Clyde was that danger for her. He was her ticket for excitement and living that thrilling life. Well,
yeah. Yeah, basically he had dropped by the girl's house while Parker was in the kitchen making hot chocolate. So he literally dropped by. He must have known the girl's brother or mutual friend somehow, because he just happened to drop by and stuff like that. And it wasn't like Clyde wasn't unknown. He kind of made a kind of a mini name for himself in that area. So I'm sure they were probably talking him up and stuff like that. But basically so she was 19 when they met, and he was 20. Still quite young in order to drop everything for this guy. But they spent so much time together during the following weeks, and well, let's just say their romance was a bit interrupted when they first met. So basically, without even knowing each other for that long, but yet, they're already in love, because why not? Their romance was interrupted when Barrow was arrested by Dallas County Sheriff's Deputy Burt Wisnand.
Yeah, Wisnand.
Okay.
Wisnand.
Wisnand.
All right, so Burt.
All right, so he was arrested by. Sorry, I wasn't ready for you to say that like that.
That's gotta be a TikTok.
You can call him Burt. All right, didn't know we knew Burt like that.
Oh, we know Burt.
Burt
and Ernie.
Are we Burt and Ernie?
Well, definitely not Bonnie and Clyde.
Definitely not. Although they weren't really the smartest criminals to exist.
No, they were just skilled.
They were
at
just
what
slippery.
They did.
Yeah.
Like eels.
Literally, like. So he was arrested by Dallas County Sheriff's Deputy Burt. I'm just gonna say Burt. And he was convicted of auto theft. I literally only had 4 words that I had left to say. Couldn't hold it in. We're keeping that. But then, like the little sneaky, slimy weasel he is, he escaped from the county jail in Waco, Texas on March 11th, 1930, using a gun Parker smuggled into the jail. But then the dumb idiot, like I said, he wasn't the smartest criminal. He was good with his shots, but he wasn't the smartest, brain-wise. He literally got recaptured on March 18th. And he was sent to Huntsville State Prison. We're not going to act like I didn't just butcher that.
Prison.
We're keeping it. In April 1930, and in September, he was assigned to the Eastham prison farm at the age of 21. This is where he kind of took a turn for the worst, because this prison that he went to was horrible. They used to beat the prisoners in there to kind of keep them straight and keep them in line, because they pretty much had free reign in this prison. Okay, so basically they would like practically beat them into submission. Some of them they would even shoot and kill.
In 1933, so on March 22nd, 1933, Clyde's brother Buck was granted a full pardon and released from prison. And so he and his wife Blanche set up housekeeping with Bonnie and Clyde and Jones in like a temporary hideout. So it was on Oak Ridge Drive in Joplin, Missouri. Mm-hmm. It basically was like a garage with like a little apartment on top. And they robbed a few businesses around the area too.
Well, I do want to add one thing, because obviously before his brother came into the picture, they were going all over the place, him and Bonnie, robbing places and stuff like that. And I will say, they didn't start out killing.
No, they did not.
They would they wouldn't even really like shoot at anyone, because he said that like he didn't want to hurt any civilians. But they would. But eventually, apparently on October 11th, they allegedly killed Howard Hall at his store during a robbery. So he killed the owner.
Yeah.
On accident, and that was his first taste of like killing violence. And I want to say that's the first, like that was when it started, that he was like, oh, like the thrill of the kill while robbing, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that kind of like started down his like entire like, whoo, now he's starting to shoot to kill. Funny enough, Christmas Eve, 1932, him and his friend W.D. Jones, and obviously Bonnie, they all were traveling because they had to leave Dallas because they couldn't stay in a place that he kept getting convicted at.
Right.
But apparently on Christmas Day, Jones and Barrow murdered Doyle Johnson while stealing his car in Temple. I believe Temple is... Okay, it's still in Texas. So I think it was so that they could steal the car to drive away. Yeah. And then Clyde killed Tarrant County Deputy Malcolm Davis on January 6th in 1933 when he, Parker, and Jones wandered into a police trap set for another criminal. Like, it was literally a trap set for another criminal, not even them. And he's like, well, while I'm here,
Yeah.
let's shoot the place.
He did have, like, pretty much, like, a vendetta against police officers.
Oh, yeah, literally after leaving that. Because they wouldn't stop harassing him even after he got out of jail.
No.
Because every little crime, they would pin it on him.
Mm-hmm. So,
no, he truly had a hatred for the police.
I know, we're up in personal.
So, as you know, they kind of became a 4-person gang. I think people forget that it wasn't just those two. Like, obviously they were most infamous because of their relationship, but they actually weren't just a 2-person job.
No. They had a whole gang. The Barrow gang.
The Barrow gang, yeah. I'm like, wow, keep it in the family, I guess.
Yeah.
So basically they went from Texas to as far north as like Minnesota for the next 3 months robbing banks. They kind of made a name for themselves. Mm-hmm. They were, notorious robbers.
I mean, I would say that they definitely made a name for themselves.
Oh yeah, they were in the newspapers. People were talking about them. They like kind of became criminal celebrities.
Oh, 100%. Like,
around the area.
Basically, like, like I said before, your modern day bandits. Like, everyone knew who they were. Like, yeah.
Yeah, well, because apparently one of several events between 1932 and 1934, they kidnapped police officers or robbery victims. They usually released the hostages far from home, sometimes with money to help them return. So, like, why?
What was the point of that?
Just the thrill of it? Just because they know that they could? So they were like, they were driving and it was like in the middle of the night and stuff like that. And they were going to go and kind of sneak up on all these like police officers. And when they got there, they were like shooting shots and stuff like that to kind of, cause mayhem and panic. Because why not?
Yeah, exactly. Why not?
And apparently Clyde accidentally hit one of the officers' horns on their wheel. And so it's just blaring, like the horns like beeping nonstop, which actually then helped Clyde. Like, it was an advantage that he didn't mean to do, because then the police officers thought it was the signal, because they're chasing these guys,
exactly.
And so they
slow
thought
speed chase,
right? It took one officer to finally get off his ass and find them. So while they had this like the horn blaring because of stupid Clyde, they ran out and they got ambushed because it took them by surprise that they were already out there waiting for them, guns blazing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many they killed, but they injured quite a few. And then obviously got away. Like,
yeah, they had like a whole barricade set and they just drove through it.
And they just drove through it and got away. I'm like, guys, at this point now, whose fault is it?
Literally.
Because there's got to be a way that they could have stopped them.
I was like, come on, really? Are they really that smart? Like,
right?
No.
I know. But so like all of their photos were like getting released to the public, and they were literally becoming like headliners, like the most notorious criminals out there. So basically they were just, they were continuing on. They would travel, do some crime, get away, and travel. That was pretty much their life for a long time.
Yeah. It's basically cyclical, honestly. Yeah. They would just do it every time.
But then they did get into a little bit of a fender bender. So apparently Barrow failed to see warning signs at a bridge under construction on June 10th while driving with Jones and Parker near Wellington, Texas, and the car flipped into a ravine. Some say that there was a gasoline fire, some say there wasn't, or that Parker was doused, which that's Bonnie, by the way, was doused with acid from the car's battery under the floorboards, but she sustained third-degree burns to her right leg, so severe that the muscles contracted and caused the leg to draw up. Jones observed, she'd been burned so bad, none of us thought she was going to live. The hide on her right leg was gone, from her hip down to her ankle. I could see the bone at places.
I like how they referred to her skin as hide.
Yeah. Back then, I know, yeah.
Yeah.
Almost like she was like an animal.
Yeah,
like
I was just gonna say.
Yeah. But yeah, no, so she could barely walk anymore. She was pretty crippled. She either had a hop or was carried. Mm-hmm. They got help from a nearby farm family, then kidnapped Collinsworth County Sheriff George Corey and City Marshal Paul Hardy, leaving the two of them handcuffed and barbed wire to a tree outside of Eric, Oklahoma.
They went to the Red Crown Tavern, which was popular with the Missouri Highway Patrolmen. And so they would seek out, almost like entice the officers and be like, oh, why don't you come chase us, like kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because they wanted that attention from them. And then they would obviously get away. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, well then, because they got into another, obviously, fender bender with the policeman. So basically, they were buying stuff. I think they were buying, like, bandages, crackers, cheese, and atropine sulfate to treat Parker's leg. So they were, like, trying to, like, be their own, like, doctors, because obviously they couldn't go into a doctor. They would literally get caught.
Right.
But the druggist contacted Sheriff's Holt Coffee. I think that's how... Oh, my God! That came up from the depths.
That really, like, that hurt my eyes.
He told them that there was, like, weird people, like, getting weird supplies to, like, come out and watch them.
Yeah.
So they were staying in a cabin. Yeah. Basically, a gunfight came into play because, you know...
He's got to show off his skills somehow.
Of course it did, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
this one didn't really go as planned. Basically, Clyde and Bonnie evaded any type of bullet. They got out spick and span. But his brother did not. His brother was wounded by a bullet that blasted a large hole in the bone of his forehead and exposed his injured brain. And then Blanche was also nearly blinded by glass fragments. So
this bone here, your frontal bone.
yeah. Blink. Bonnie and Clyde fled, you know, because...
Why would they stick around for the rest of their gang?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, one of them shot, and then the other one's, like, left behind. They're not gonna risk getting caught, you know?
Not for them, no.
No, so they flee, and they take Buck to the hospital, and obviously, unfortunately, he died on the table. But then Blanche was given 10 years prison time because she was an accomplice. So she did actually end up going to jail during that time. While this was all happening, like while they're on the run and stuff like that, and criminals, they were actually like actively continuing to talk and interact with their families. I don't know if you knew that.
I did.
Yeah, they had a method that they would do. They literally would like meet up once in a while. Like they used to have spots where they would meet, and then they would correlate. So Clyde's dad would be at, I think it was like a gas station or something.
Okay.
Or some sort of local store around where he lived. And Clyde would drive by and throw a bottle out the window, kind of like he was like littering. And it would have a note inside of it telling him where to meet them. And they would do that for like a few months and stuff like that. Like every once in a while they would like have a meetup. And all of them would go meet Clyde and say hi to him and see that he's okay. Yeah, so on November 22nd, they narrowly evaded arrest while trying to meet with family members near Sowers, Texas. Yeah, so, because as he was driving up to the meet spot, he sensed a trap and drove past his family's car. So yeah, but then, not even until November 28th, the grand jury, they delivered a murder indictment. Right? Okay. Against Parker and Burrow for the killing in January of that year, nearly 10 months earlier. So it was Parker's first warrant for murder, but it was definitely not for Mr. Clyde. It was Frank Hammer. He was a former ranger, so he wasn't even on duty anymore.
No.
And they convinced him to do this. He was put onto the case to try and figure out where Clyde would end up next, you know. Yeah. And so he figured out that he would most likely return back home. Dumb move on Clyde's part, but like, you know. And so he was smart enough and he literally figured out the spot too, because it was a family friend that ratted Clyde out to them.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Joe Palmer. He helped out Clyde and he helped him like escape and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
so Joe's father talked to the police and they're like, if we help you out, you'll pardon my son for any crime that he's done. Was it immunity? I think it's immunity.
Pretty much.
So he sold them out and he let them use his like land and area as a trap because he knew that Clyde would be coming to them to seek help and stuff like that to hide. So yeah, that family sold Clyde out.
Essentially, the police had set up this whole trap, and there were 6 officers. And they were positioned on the side of the road, on the left side of the road, in like the trees. So that way, when the car came through, there weren't going to be officers on the other side. No one was going to get hurt. They spotted the iconic 1934 Ford Deluxe V8 coming down the road. And so the 6 officers, I'll actually read this to you. This is a statement made by Hinton and Alcorn. So each of the 6 officers had a shotgun and an automatic rifle and pistols. We opened fire with the automatic rifles. They were emptied before the car even got with us. Then we used shotguns. There was smoke coming from the car, and it looked like it was on fire. After shooting the shotguns, we emptied the pistols at the car, which had passed us, and run into a ditch about 50 yards down the road. It almost turned over. We kept shooting at the car even after it stopped. We weren't taking any chances. So, I would say maybe overkill.
Yeah, so the officers fired about 130 rounds,
Yes.
emptying each of their weapons into the car.
Mm-hmm.
And also, apparently, they reported hearing Parker scream.
Yes.
Creepy.
And because Clyde was shot first, and in one statement, it said that these rounds, they were strong enough to go through the car, go through Clyde, go through Bonnie, and then go through go back outside the car. So, in total, it's estimated that Bonnie and Clyde each received about 50 bullets.
Because they killed him first shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they
So
killed Clyde first, and then Bonnie died a little bit later.
Yeah, Bonnie died from the collective shots going through Clyde.
I think, they had 14 kills altogether?
I think so.
And 9 of them were officers.
Yeah.
So, they had a big vendetta against
they
them.
were angry, pissed.
But yeah, it's just wild. They were, mangled. just absolutely littered with gunshot wounds. And in some pictures, I'm not going to put them up. Feel free to look them up if you want to, but they are kind of disturbing. In some pictures, they show Bonnie after they extracted her from the car, and her hand, I think there were 2 fingers left on her hand,
Give or take.
something like that. I don't know. They shot off her fingers. It was pretty much her middle finger and her thumb left, and her face was just beyond recognition.
Yeah.
In some reports, the coroner had issues embalming the bodies because of all the bullet wounds. They had more than a dozen guns and several thousand rounds of ammunition in the Ford, including 120-round BAR magazines. And if you don't know what that is, they're Browning automatic rifles.
Yeah.
So, they had some serious...
They had some serious weapons in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then not even just that, but everyone wanted to see this because, back then they didn't have secured crime sites like we do now.
Right.
So people were literally trying to collect souvenirs like shell casings, slivers of glass, shattered bloody pieces of clothing from the garments of Bonnie and Clyde. One man even tried to take Clyde's ear off to take it home as a trophy. Disgusting.
They had open caskets.
They did.
There were a lot of stitches.
Basically, they had to sew the skin back on their faces.
And they had separate funerals, and they are buried in separate places.
Yeah, which I find ironic because they were always together, and then in death they were separated.
Yeah. So at Bonnie's funeral, it's estimated that there were around 20,000 people, and at Clyde's it was around 15,000, which is insane.
Yeah.
That is a huge turnout. But again, they were I don't know.
They were famous in the worst way.
Yeah, it says here that Bonnie and Clyde wished to be buried side by side, but the Parker family would not allow it.
No. Why would you?
Yeah, exactly. But, yeah.
Well.
So that pretty much wraps up Bonnie and Clyde.
Yes.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yes, and the last episode is out. It's on Spotify as well, in case that's where you want to watch it. Follow us on TikTok so you can get updates about every video that we post. Funny clips.
Oh, and don't forget to turn on the notifications so you get notified, since we did change. And just a reminder, we do post every 2 weeks now.
Yes.
But stay safe, stay happy, and we'll see you next time. Deuces!
I'm already down, though. No, I'm not. We out.
Oh. Wait, I didn't.